So hello everyone and welcome to the Instrumentation sync on the 13th of February 2024. Since 16.9, the milestone 16.9 just kind of ended last week. We are starting with 16.10. I think we want to start with our normal walkthrough through the milestone, and just as always, please ask questions if anything is unclear. Or yeah, otherwise you're missing something, really anything that comes up. Tanusha, do you want to share screen again?
Yeah, sure, Vasi. Right. Yeah. So this is the issue for the 16.10 milestone plan, and our objectives for the feature list is first of all cover any previous release carryovers and also work towards our FY21 Q1 objectives. Uh, so I think we have a list of previous release carryovers here, and in terms of new feature work, our top priorities migrate all Redis total counts to internal events, mainly to continue the momentum on what we worked on in the previous quarter and take that forward and move that to completion. And I see that Basi is kind of filtered this down by groups, the individual issues. And Basi, correct me if I'm wrong. I believe that that's a better way to approach this. Like, do you have more to add there? Yeah.
Yeah, I think I think I wrote in the epic how many metrics it is overall, but it's more than 100. So doing it one metric at a time, on the one hand, would create loads of issues. On the other hand, there's a bunch of these metrics where we also discussed before, where it might be possible to have a single event for multiple metrics. And then, so as you can see, the first issue here is allowing to filter by additional properties in service ping. So I think one of the carryovers from last milestone is to add these additional properties. So via label and property and so on, again, back into internal events. And then the next step would be that within a metric, you can say, okay, please do a total count on all these events, all the events with the name XYZ, where the label equals, I don't know. No, I don't have a good example. So for example, a repository type, which would be then a programming language, so it could be like something like JavaScript, or depending on the event. So that's something we wanna be able to do, to then be able to have one event that covers multiple metrics, which should kind of simplify the instrumentation in a bunch of cases significantly. But any of the cases where we thought, or I think that this could be potentially happening, are not part of 16.10 yet, just so that we don't block ourselves. So for 16.10, the ones that are now in there are really the ones that should be quite straightforward. So where it's for a specific group, there's either just one or maybe like 2 or 3 metrics, which sound really unrelated to each other. So there's a high chance that it's just kind of one, like a separate event for any of these. And all of the metrics in there also are ones that seem to be up to date. So they're still reporting new numbers on the automated service ping. They seem to be working and so on. So we need to kind of carry them over. Again, it hopefully should be straightforward to do the ones that are currently scheduled here. The more complicated ones we'd likely then do in one of the next milestones, since they then require this allowing to filter by additional properties. And hopefully by then we are also more used to doing the conversions and have maybe some more experience with it, which then could lead to some automations, or at least kind of a very straightforward, like this is what you need to do one of these. My hope would really be that we kind of can go quickly through those. If you have any more questions, I think Ankit is the volunteer to take the underlying KR over. So from here on out, Ankit will coordinate the next issues we were gonna create there, or also further questions on the issues themselves.
Thanks, Cassie.
Great, but the issues there, they are up, like that are already listed here in the issue. They're up for grabs, right?
Yeah, I think I also tagged you, Jonas, and Piotr as the ones to estimate them, just because I think both of you were involved in the migration that's currently still happening, like the first one that we're doing there of this web IDE something event, which is a blocker to all of those. So I assume that you have the most context on estimating like how much time a single event, for example, should take after this first migration is in place. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. No other questions. And then moving on to the second priority is related to product analytics infrastructure being ready for GA. And what I understand from the first issue is this kind of the hardened product analytics SDK tracking calls to confirm product analytics, that the events that are ingested follow the schema. And I know we had some issues in the past where there was when it did not match the schema, there was failures, and so this should kind of take care of that. Allow vector to be scaled down enough when performing database migrations, and also verify and enhance Snowplow enricher scaling. We worked on collector scaling, and now we're also working on enricher scaling. And so all these issues relate again to product analytics being ready for GA. Okay. Moving on, we have removed duplicates events under different key paths. So I think we identified two things that we'll work on, and one is fixing groups, the group information, so that we can reach out to these groups to keep our metrics clean and keep that data clean there. And the other is duplicates, because it seemed like a low-hanging fruit that we could target. So we have a little bit of that work targeted for this milestone. One is duplicates, and the other is creating a workflow to keep group information up to date in our metrics dictionary. I think this also relates to that update metrics, a definition to have valid product groups. So this is clearing the data that we already have, and this relates to creating a workflow in place to have that information up to date going forward. And finally, we have 80% of new events are verified within 3 working days after making it to production. This is one of our KRs, and we have a placeholder for how a solution that will work towards that KR. Any questions on the feature prioritized list? Okay. Basti, you want to do the engineering prioritized list? Yeah.
Yep. So I think most of these things are actually really cleanup of previous stuff. So we have 2 carryovers, expiration dates for internal events metrics, so that the Redis HLL buckets actually expire. Getting rid of the options key, which is kind of right now a duplication within the metric definition, which makes it harder to read and is shouldn't be necessary anymore for within the data warehouse. Then I think that's the next one is something that Jonas and Mihaud discovered when working on providing improving how we handle multiple unique metrics, that there are some types of metrics that are implemented right now but not used at all. And the first one, it doesn't show completely here, is removing support for aggregated metrics of the type intersection. So these are AND metrics. So this is something that we have implemented. Nobody ever used within the last years since it's been implemented. It's definitely been implemented before my time. And so the code that's there is only a liability because it's not actually useful to anyone. but it requires maintenance. It requires, for example, when we change other things, it requires adopting that code as well. So we'd rather remove it to be faster in other places, since again, this type of metric has never been used, so it apparently isn't useful. Also, nobody ever asks about it, so it's not like something that we should continue to maintain, and hopefully makes us faster otherwise. Then we have in the version app, we have a service that's no longer necessary that we can remove, unifying internal events and aggregated metric unique. That's also in the metric definition. It's somehow called differently, which can lead to confusion around how we call uniqueness attributes. And the last one is connected to simplifying the removal process. So in our old removal process for metrics, it mentions that, I think the original saying is you need to make sure that something isn't used within the conversational index, a metric, and it links to a model in the version app, which is this call, or a service in the version app, which is this call calculate conf index service. The problem is we don't really know whether this conversational index is used anymore, how it's used anymore. So if this calculate conf index service is actually useful. And also just looking at the service, it's not obvious which metrics are used for it. So this is really about figuring out, is this still used? How is it still used? How is it still relevant? And then depending on that, creating a better way to deal with these metrics. So for example, we have the performance indicator type on metrics, right? So if a metric is a performance indicator, it's something that shouldn't be removed, or at least people need to know about that it's being removed. And in general, with the simplification of the removal process, we really want to get to a place where only for things that are clearly marked as important, so as a performance indicator, those should be the ones where there's additional work necessary of informing people. All the other metrics, ideally, is something that people can just remove on their own, or mark as removed on their own, with only a review by us, so that this whole process gets a lot faster, so that we hopefully get a more maintainable metrics library. Because right now we're really, the current process is really so convoluted that nobody really wants to go through it, right? Nobody wants to remove something. And again, figuring out which parts like this conversational index are actually useful, that's part of the things that we need to do. And it's also going to be interesting to figure out like what has been done there, because it's definitely been a long time ago. And then we have still 2 bugs that we want to cover. There's no new bug, no important new bug work. We still have some version check data that has been erroneously collected that currently Nico and people from other groups are still working on figuring out how we can delete it. The issue there is that it's so much data, and that the database, the usage ping database within this version app is just so huge that it's hard to delete anything in there. I have performant queries. And the last one is completing started migrations. So we discovered that there's a bunch of migrations that haven't been completely done, where either individual calls to events have been missed, or tests haven't been migrated completely. And those events need to be the migrations just need to be completed in order for us to not have any remnants of like partially migrated events lying around. All right, that's maintenance and bug type. One more thing that I just wanted to mention, I think it's not noted down there yet. That's probably something we should add. I mean, I think most of you are aware that I think most of us are going to be at the summit in the last week of the coming milestone. Not all of us, but regardless of whether we are in summit or not, the last week is actually going to be a production changelog. So during summit, there's going to be a production changelog. So even if you stay at home, or if you if out of some reason someone starts doing work in Vegas, we're not going to be able to deploy it to production. So really, when it comes to what we want to deliver this milestone, we mostly have to target the week before, which would be the first week of March.
we can still merge to master and so on, right? So it'll just be a big blob of things being deployed after that.
Yeah.
Window. Okay.
I mean, I'd assume that since most people are going to be at Summit, so I mean, the numbers I've heard, if everyone gets their flights, is like upwards of 1,600, 700 people. So it's more than 3/4. So I'd assume that, I don't know, getting like, even if you're not there, getting reviews and so on is going to be slow. Yeah. All right. Are there any questions remaining on the coming milestone? If not, I just wanted to quickly remind everyone that we have a retro for every milestone. We haven't really used it that much in the last milestones. I'm also still thinking about how to make this more interactive while still including everyone. So if you have any ideas there, feel free to come to me with them. But still, even the existing retro, I'd urge everyone to take a few minutes and really think about the last milestone, what went well, what didn't go well, and write those things down. If there's anything that comes to your mind where you wouldn't feel comfortable to share it in that environment, since it's the retros are, as far as I know, visible within GitLab, so they're not visible to the outside, but they're visible within GitLab. Then feel free also to let me directly know, and we can figure out a way to otherwise, like somehow in other ways, formulate that. But I think it's really important that we kind of really share what bothers us, but also the wins that we had in the last milestone from everyone's perspective. Ankit, I think you're next. You're muted, Ankit.
Thanks. So my actually question was, so we needed to establish a two-factor authentication for PyPy, and we can either register with device or Google Authenticator. So I'm not sure like how it works with the like shared team email ID. Like we have this. So Miha asked like, should we configure it with shared one password vault? So the password is shared in one password. But for two-factor authentication, like okay, I need to ping Paul Armstrong for that. Okay.
Yeah, Ankit, I just want to, we sorted out a few weeks back. I know Paul was dealing with that, so probably he's the best person to ask, because I can't find the issue, to be honest, but yeah, I know he mentioned that in our weekly meetings. So better ping Paul, maybe he has more experience a little bit in front of you, so you can see how he sorted out. So yeah, feel free to ping him.
Sure. Yeah, thanks. I'll do that.
Welcome.
I think Radovan, you're next then.
Yeah, just 2 points from my side. Usually we're doing this asynchronously. Thank you for a very productive discussion, Basti, and also for Nico and all of you. For cell 1.0, how this is connected without automated service ping jobs, and we have actually 2 questions to answer. We don't know yet, but yeah, thanks for keep us posted. First one is how we will reflect cell 1 and other instance in data warehouse. Probably it will be only one schema as it's now, and also we need to follow up with metrics and how we calculate the metrics. So that was in that direction our discussion is going. So I think probably you don't know yet how it will go, because I asked for automated service ping and SQL metrics, and someone said it will be like 2 endpoints for each cell. So it's up to you to decide what is the best fit, but yeah, still please keep us posted. So I just want to highlight this and provide a heads up. Second point is about analytics instrumentalization team and data platform discussion. Basti, we started and kick off this. I think we're going in a good direction. The main challenge for us is, just to share with the team, is when you introduce a new metrics, now we know how it's going automatically, and we get the data via RESTful API. The catch is, if something is missing, like in that SQL for that metrics, either column or table, our metrics will fail. Pipeline will pass properly, but we get the information, okay, this new metrics isn't passed properly. Why? Because table column is missing. So also I provide a solution what we build, like you can do a part of automated testing for you. So, and also you provide some other option, like if you introduce something, how we can catch that. I mean, in other words, long story short, is how we can proactively act on this to prevent this kind of failure on production, if you know what I mean. So just a heads up for all of you about this discussion, and because I create application where you can put SQL in Postgres for your metrics, it will be translated, executed on Snowflake, and you can have or get results like true or false, is it passed or not. So that can be kind of mechanism. I don't know, do you have a good use case to automate this so we can deploy this application as actually its endpoint for RESTful API? But yeah, please refer to discussion if you want to contribute, please do so. So just a heads up for you.
Yeah, and maybe kind of to give some additional context for everyone, so that where the discussion is currently at is from the, because it's definitely one option that we would deploy the application that Radovan mentioned and just test metrics kind of before deployment, like is everything already prepped in the data warehouse for those to be calculated. But assuming that the main problem is missing columns and missing tables, those are normally, I would assume, oftentimes implemented separately from the actual metrics, right? So a new column might get added, and then at some later point, someone adds a metric. And so the question that we need to answer is maybe we should rather have a workflow where the data team already gets notified just if a new column or a new table or something gets added to kind of prematurely.
We have yeah. Sorry for interrupting. We have the label like data team need to check something, and we can check. But the main problem is if you introduce new column or new tables, we don't know will it be used for new metrics or not. That's the doubt for us, if you know what I mean. Yeah. Sorry, go on, please.
Yeah. But yeah, everyone feel free to also chime in on the discussion, because it's really how we can make our systems more reliable here. And Radovan, just one more question to the cells thing. So even I think we got the confirmation that specific cells, or there's going to be this concept of a ring, which is a bunch of cells deployed together, that those will have separate versions, right? And so they will have different database schemas, because in one, so one ring, which is a bunch of cells, might be 24 hours back, and another one might be a week back behind kind of. And so they will have a different schema. Tables or rows columns might be there, might be missing. You're still planning to kind of create one big database out of all the different cells, even with the different schemas?
For what we know for cell 1.0, like with 2 instances, for sure it will be one big database or one schema, one size fits all. I mean, both data from both cells will come into one schema in our warehouse in Snowflake. That's the part of the deal. That is what I know as well. Put a comment there. Beyond that, for more cells, I'm not sure.
Okay.
But as of now, what's describing, you can find in the comment in more details. Like, okay, if we have cell 1.0 with 2 instances, both of the data will come into one schema, row.top.postgres in Snowflake.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. I think we have an async discussion going on anyway, and we're going to continue to try to figure that out. I think because definitely our solutions when it comes to the metrics and like how you treat the database and then how we treat the metrics and so on, they need to be compatible with each other, right? So
exactly.
Yeah, that's.
I highlighted 2 points in my last comment. Like, okay, first is how we should treat the data as per schema, like one schema, or just reflect what is on the cells or on the ring, as you said. Second point is about the metrics on the top of this Postgres data or production data, how we call it. So yeah, we need to keep it in sync. So yeah, keep us posted so we can discuss and find a good solution. I mean, up to you, up to us, but yeah, it will be good to be in sync and be very, very proactive. Otherwise, yeah, we can reach the issue with this. But yeah, I think we are so good as of now.
Yeah, and Nico is the DRI from our side. on
Yeah,
cells.
that's great.
Now he took that over from Jonas.
I will also ping Ved for this part to give him the more context, so we can maybe sync in, I don't know, a couple of weeks, just when we know exactly what will be the shape of the cells. You also measuring and everything, but yeah, as of now we can continue asynchronous.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Cool. Then I think we have one more actual show and tell that we're gonna have. Woohoo!
Yeah, so I wanted to show an issue that I've been working on for a longer time already. It's about introducing Redis HLL counters for separate unique values. And can you see my screen now?
Yep.
Okay. So basically, previously when we were triggering Redis events, they were triggered with a call, like you can see here, something like this. Well, this is for counting events, and this is for tracking them. So for example, if I track it 2 more times, then this value should go from 2 to 4. And right now, what happens is that we introduced a new attribute where tracking events and when counting them, this attribute is property name. So we can see it, for example, in this call. So here we are trying to count events, and we have all of the same attributes. So events name, start date, end date, and then we also have the property name. So you can see that we have just one unique project property for this event. And if we check a different property, say user, we have 3 different events like this. And then when we call the events, we also pass the property name. So if I take a previous track call and change the event name to the one that we used, and then I'll add the property name. Let's use just user again. And if we trigger it, say 3 more times, and then count it again, we see that now it's 6 different users for this given event. So the fact that we can track different properties for a single event means that, for example, this is an existing metric that we have. We already have one metric where for this event we count user ID, but we could create the same metric, just counting, for example, project ID or say namespace ID. So this is the new possibility added by this issue that I've been working on. But it will also introduce some changes in our workflow. Namely, when we are migrating events to internal events, we will now need to add them to a file. This is included in our documentation for migrating events. We have this point, add the events to HLL Redis key overrides file. And here we have the format used in this file specified. This is necessary because in internal events, we are already passing the property name, but we want the data to still be saved under the old Redis key where the events were coming previously. So yeah, to be able to remove this file, we would need to migrate the Redis keys for these events. Yeah, so we have this file, and then there is also one more change. Well, if someone is introducing a legacy event, so not an internal event, but an event running in the old system, it needs to be added to this file with a legacy events list. And this is not documented in our docs because we don't have any documentation for adding legacy events, because like, we're supposed to only accept the internal events right now. However, it will trigger errors, which will make it visible that in case if an internal event is called without a property name, or in case when a legacy event is called with a property name. So this makes it sure that it will be not possible for someone to create a migration of a legacy event into the internal events without adding it to this file that I have shown before. I can show the error that pops up. So here, for example, this is an event name of an internal event. When we are sending, where we are trying to count the events with a property name, it's working fine. But if we remove the property name, maybe it's for tracking. Okay, let me check. So we get an error here. Saying that this event has been invoked with no property name. And here we have the file to which we need to add the name of this event. And in the opposite case, if a legacy event gets triggered with a property name, this is the case that would happen during migration. Okay, so in case someone was trying to migrate a legacy event into internal events, but they didn't perform these steps related to adding the name into this new file, this event would get triggered with a property name, and then they would get an error. Basically, it's a similar error message, just mentioning again the file where it needs to be added, and also with a link to the documentation where we say that it needs to be done. So basically, the new steps we need to perform only in case if someone adds a new legacy event, or in case we are migrating a legacy event into internal events. Yeah, that's the presentation. Does someone have some questions?
Woohoo!
Bravo. Really nice to see this done.
I think that's super
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, it's very cool.
I wonder if someone outside of the team can
I was
understand the excitement.
thinking the exact same thing. If somebody saw this video, they would be like, why is that cool? But yeah. Right? Radovan, what do you think? Is it awesome?
I think it's fine. I try to learn Ruby in a fast way. And also, yeah, I deal a lot with metrics. So at least for me, the main problem was to understand, okay, what means legacy metrics? How it can be drawn metrics or something. But yeah, learning point for me at least. So yeah, so cool. Thanks for the demo, Mike.
I think what this, maybe not a question, but more of a remark, something for us to remember is, because Mia just mentioned multiple times that it introduces a step if someone introduces an existing Redis HTML metric, which we normally don't want people to do anymore, but I've seen a bunch of times now happen, and I think that the main case this happens if people have like this kind of micro framework around Redis HTML metrics. So I think that's, I think quick actions is one of these things. But like as soon as a new quick action gets added, like one of these / commands in the merge request or in an issue template or something, they have this existing ResHTML setup, and so then they don't even need to add another call or something because the call happens automatically. They just need to add the instrumentation for the actual metric. So I guess this shows that we should maybe not in this quarter, but kind of in the future, put some investigation effort into figuring out which of these exist, these kind of micro frameworks, and then either migrate them on our own or work with the team to migrate those. Because in those cases, this would also be like little or comparably little effort to probably migrate a huge amount of metrics to internal events, right? So for example, quick actions, if they are not being sent to Snowplow already, if we just migrate over the micro framework, then suddenly all of the quick actions, like every time someone does a / command, it would be sent.
I think it's the same with the CI templates.
Yeah,
They're like 10% or more of the total metrics we have.
yeah, and those are again also oftentimes I think use cases of these filtering and labels or additional custom properties, right? Because it could be like a quick action, performed quick action or something is the event action, and then you have as a label or something the actual action being performed. So you have a single event where you then could create many different metrics from, because they are based on a label or some kind of custom property, which would make things a lot easier, I think, because then it removes a whole bunch of custom instrumentation code, right? And it's just a single event call and then a bunch of metric definitions.
So I would like to also mention something on that topic, and especially since we discussed these quick actions. So I was doing a code review when someone was adding a quick action recently, and by default, it was going through this old flow triggering legacy events. And what I suggested in the review was just to add a new route only for this one new event that they added, so that this new event would trigger an internal event. And even if the old events still trigger the old legacy events, it helps us not grow the amount of legacy events that we have. And also it makes it much easier to later migrate it, because we have this route ready, and we can just even migrate these events one by one. It doesn't have to be all at once. So it's something that I can suggest to others, like in case you see someone add a new legacy event and it's because of this old framework, you can always try to persuade them to add an internal event just for the new one, because on the database side, it should still be the same data for the team, so they should still be able to compare it with the other older metrics.
That's a really good point. It kind of starts to introduce them also to internal events and so on. And also, maybe kind of, since I've just now reminded, maybe that's something that we can then, like if any of you discovers this, maybe an action for us can also be that we actually create issues for this kind of micro framework, because then we don't need to go back in the event we want to migrate it, but rather if you encounter, for example, the quick actions one, feel free to create an issue, which is like, okay, migrate the rest of the quick actions, just so that we create awareness around this. And then we can always later decide if we want to do it ourselves or if we can somehow convince the responsible group to just do it at once. But that way, when we encounter those, like documenting when we encounter those micro frameworks is probably easier than if either of us would now kind of go into the code and try to figure out which of those exist, right? It's like it's more something that you see, like when you see it, you realize, okay, someone created their own framework around their code, our code. But discovering in the moment could be harder to do.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea to create these issues. I think we already had some of these frameworks linked in we had this like feedback issue for internal events where we were listing reasons why people were not adding internal events. I think we already had some frameworks listed there.
That might be.
I will check it later.
Cool. All right, then if there's no more questions or anything else to show, I Thanks a lot, everyone. It's paid off again that we prolonged the time for this meeting. But I think it was really cool also to see the show and tell and to have a bit more sharing within the team, also what's going on here. We really should continue that. And feel free to think about what you want to share next week or the week after. Cool. Have a nice day, everyone. See ya.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.